What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Power by Primus, and in today's video we're going to be talking about a kind of a hot topic, and that is going to be Lionizer and Peace through Tyranny. Now, they are both separate cards, but together they'd obviously get a lot stronger. A lot of people are really freaking out about the power level of the card, how difficult it is to play against people who are running these cards. So today I'm going to be putting a lot of that stuff to rest. I really want to give you guys my input on it and really kind of help a lot of you people out there who are having issues with these cards, and hopefully help you guys move forward with ways to defend yourself against them and or beat them. But before we do get into today's video, I wanted to give you guys just a quick overview of everything that is coming to the channel. Here in the next week or so, I'm going to be doing a Gen Con recap video with the rest of the Colorado team once I can get everyone back together to be able to do stuff like that. I did put my general view on the stuff on an article that is on our website, powerbyprimus.com. I also did put one of my decks, the Primetime deck, which is the General Optimus Flamor Wheeljack. I did put that deck as well as the video for the profile on it on the website as well. You guys can head over there, go to the deck section, and obviously see it from there. And then I do have an interview coming up that I'm going to be posting. I did get some games in with some people. I don't want to spoil it with who yet, but it was some great people, some great games. I'm going to be posting gameplay from that from Gen Con. I'm also going to be showing off the deck that I did pilot in the top 32 and go more in depth with that. Now, that was something that a lot of people have been asking me for, is how I've been sideboarding, how I chose cards that I chose. So I'm going to be starting up kind of a new series with the deck profiles, going far more in depth as to why I put cards specifically in there, how to handle certain matchups, and then really address the sideboard. I'm really happy that a lot of you guys want to see more from it. I was really kind of worried originally that a lot of people just didn't want to see that, and it turns out a lot of people do want to see that. So I'll start to dive a little more into the competitive side of the building and the sideboarding process, because there's so much depth and gameplay in that. I'm really excited you guys want to see it, and I'm really excited to be able to deliver that for you guys. And then I'm also just going to be doing a really cool highlight video from everything from Gen Con. That's going to be really exciting. I had an absolute blast as the overall, theme for it and stuff. But like I said, today we're going to be talking about Lionizer and Peace through Tyranny. Alright, so starting the conversation about Lionizer, I first want to just talk about what Lionizer does on paper at base. He does have 0 attack, and then he has bold 4. Now, the rest of his stats are kind of relevant, but kind of not relevant. But he does have 8 health and 2 armor, if I'm remembering off the top of my head correctly. And it's not so much as the character side, the bot side of the card, that's really the scary part about it. It is because he's a battle master. Once he is KO'd, he gets to flip over to a weapon and then get equipped one of your other characters. That does allow that character to plan 1 and get bold 4. Now, on the surface of Lionizer, he's usually going to be swinging between 4 to 8 damage on average. He does have 0 attack to start, but he does have that bold 4, so you get 2 for your normal flip, and then you do get that bold 4. So assuming that you flip just 1 orange pip for all 6 of those, you're doing 6 damage. Maybe there's a couple of double oranges in there, maybe there's a white in there, which starts to push that damage a little further. But I know lots of people who are running that character are also running some blanks and maybe have too many white pips, so you have a chance of getting multiple white pips on a flip as well. So that's why I said that kind of that 4 to 8 range. Yes, in theory, Lionizer can swing for, 13 damage if you're getting all your double oranges, a white. I understand that, but in those scenarios, they're very far and few between. Probably out of 100 games, maybe you'd get it once. Maybe. It's really difficult to be able to get all of those double oranges and all that stuff to be able to stack. Now, obviously, once you start to add weapons to the character, if you can put a grenade launcher on him and then play a supercharge, then yeah, Lionizer is going to start to swing for massive amounts of damage. But I want to talk about him just at his core, the base, 0 attack, bold 4. That's kind of where he's at. Now, I'm going to be going back and forth on a lot of stuff in this video, because sometimes there will be a situation that will pop up where I'll talk about, maybe trying to understand board states and some things like that. So I hope I don't get too far really out of whack with it. But usually you're playing Lionizer in a very heavy, aggressive deck. Mostly oranges. If you're running Lionizer in a list that has a lot of blues or has a lot of whites, you're really limiting the power of Lionizer, and he starts to get a lot weaker. It's the same thing kind of with Arcee. Arcee on the surface is kind of a bland, basic character. She just has 1 attack, and she can get pierced for equal to her attack. But if you're running a bunch of blues in the list, she can start to kind of go down in power level, unless obviously you're running like inverted and stuff. because you're flipping blues on attacks. It's the same thing with Lionizer. Now, obviously, again, like I said, once you start to introduce weapons into the mix, the character gets more dangerous, but usually you're not applying those kind of weapons to Lionizer because you're trying to get him KO'd as fast as possible while also putting out as much damage as possible before they go down. Now, there are multiple scenarios where, let's say my opening hand, I'm running a Lionizer, I have 2 Erratic Lightnings. Great, it's easy to throw an Erratic Lightning onto my Lionizer, throw him in, get that extra 3 damage, and then when he gets KO'd, I still have another Erratic Lightning in my hand, so it's not that big of a deal. So in situations like that, yeah, he's going to be pushing for a little more damage. Now, a lot of people fear KOing Lionizer. I will tell you right now, from my opinion, whether it's whatever, always KO Lionizer. Never, never, never leave him on the table to be pieced through tyrannied. Now, those scenarios, I will say again, go down. You have 40 cards in your deck, let's say normal. You have 3 pieced through tyrannies in the deck. The chances of you having it in your hand are lower. Now, obviously, they can definitely have it in their hand, but you never want to play to the fact that they don't have it in their hand. It's a really scary thing, but one thing I always try to tell people is always assume that your opponent has the best card in their hand to beat you with, and then play around that. And then if they don't have it, great. Another thing is that Piece Through Tyranny is a really powerful card, assuming they have a target for it. If not, then it's just a double orange pip in their hand, and then it becomes a dead card. So if there is no Lionizer on the table, there's no Piece Through Tyranny shenanigans that are going down. So like I said, I'd always, always, always try to KO Lionizer. Now, I don't want you to mistake that for go all in, play your grenade launcher, play your supercharge, or play your leap into battle grenade launcher, whatever, just to try to KO him, and then your other turns are now terrible because you went all out on that Lionizer. That's not the case either. You definitely have to play the game of a little bit of cat and mouse with it, and I'm going to get into it more later on about how to understand the board state and read your opponent to see if they even do happen to have the Piece Through Tyranny in hand. So in those kind of situations, like I said, don't go all in. Don't try to put 1,000,000 damage into Lionizer. You want to try to KO him as effectively as possible and as efficiently as possible. It's one thing that is very specific about this game and a lot of people don't understand is about the efficiency and trying to make sure you maximize your turns, but also not going 200% into turn 1 and then going 12% into turn 2. It doesn't really work out that way. You always want to try to be at that 100% each turn. So now the next thing I want to talk about with Lionizer is his weapon side, which is definitely, in my opinion, the threat of the card. I don't think the bot mode itself is really that much of a threat. It can put out, good amounts of damage, but again, it's all on the weapon side where he really starts to maximize what he gets to do. And that's because it does allow you to plan, 1, getting those double oranges out of your hand, especially if, again, they have that Piece Through Tyranny in their hand that they didn't get to play on their Lionizer. Now they get to stick it on top of their deck, and then bold 4, so they're really putting out a whole lot of damage with this character. Now, the other part about weapons that makes them so powerful and so efficient is the fact that they are active immediately. You, as the opponent, takes out my Lionizer. Really good for you, smart play, you took out my Lionizer, but now my Lionizer becomes a weapon and gets to go on my character, and there is nothing that you can do to respond to it. Now, I'm going to get into something here in just a minute where you can, but it's very specific, where you can respond to those on your opponent's turn. Now, I get to attack with my character with the Saber on, which again gives me that bold 4 and allows me to plan. There's not a lot you can do about it. It kind of is going to happen. So in these scenarios is where it comes down to you understanding that board state and not exposing yourself to that board state. If I'm about to attack into a Lionizer, I know I'm going to KO the character. The benefit to my opponent who has Lionizer being on all orange is that I can do the math on board. If Lionizer has 8 health and 2 armor and my opponent has no blues, all I have to do is 10 damage to KO Lionizer. I don't have to do 16, I don't have to do any other random number. I know on board how much damage I have to do. Now, if your opponent's running it with cars, let's say, which we did see in the finals of Gen Con, they did have 3 start your engine. So it's like, okay, now there's potentially 3 blues in the deck. make sure you look through the scrap pile. Okay, I don't see any there. How many cards are left in his deck? How many are in her hand? And then maybe you add 1 to be safe, get in for that 11 damage, and then no matter what, you should most likely still be able to get that KO. And then not have to really, again, exert yourself to have to do so. Now I have to think about when my opponent does get that weapon, what are they going to be doing with it? What character are they putting it on? Are they going to put it on their biggest and best creature or character and leave him back and not attack with him next turn because they really want to maximize that attack? Or are they going to throw it on this character and swing at me next turn with it? These are how you begin to play around stuff in this game. It is a difficult thing to do, to be able to read and understand your opponent. It is probably one of the biggest skill sets that you can get in gaming and in just competition in general, whether it's, sports or whether it's in card games or video games. Being able to understand what your opponent is going to do next is really difficult, but once you can start to see these things, it makes your game so much better. I kind of harp on it with a lot of the people that I talk to about really trying to understand board state at all time, and it can get annoying, but it is actually extremely powerful. In scenario A, they put it on character A, who's going to be attacking next turn. Okay, to me that could tell me that they're trying to target one of my characters specifically. He knows what character I'm going to attack with next, most likely, and he wants to try to KO that character. He wants to try to put as much damage as possible. It could also mean that he has a grenade launcher in hand to be able to put on his really big character, and he doesn't care about where he gets to actually put this weapon because he has another weapon. And obviously you don't want to put the saber on the character in scenario A that you're about to swing with and then also play a grenade launcher and expose yourself to it. So to me that would show, okay, he has a different upgrade that he wants to play on his character B, so this is why he's playing it on character A. The other thing about it is that maybe he is okay with this character about to get KO'd or me to be able to respond to it. Maybe he has a quartermaster in hand. It's another thing that is in this game. It is a white pip, so you will mostly find it in a lot of orange decks. So it is a possibility to think, okay, he may have quartermaster if I do KO this character and I try to get rid of the saber via a KO. He may just be able to bring it back next turn and still put it on his other character. So again, something that you need to think about. Or in scenario B, they put it on character B. They're going to really try to protect that card because they want to get massive damage with that star character or whatever else. And then now that tells me that that is their plan, and I have to really try to get rid of that character or to try to get rid of that saber before that plan gets to go off. So the tells are kind of there whenever a character or whenever a player plays a card. Now, again, I'll get into here in a second about another tell when it comes to with Lionizer, but I'm just specifically talking about his weapon side here. So, knowing that my opponent is about to do this, is about to play it on character A or B, it depends on how I want to do my turn now. If I know that he's going to put it onto character A and he's going to try to crash in, what character do I feed him? Do I maybe play a force field on my character that I'm going to feed him? Do I maybe play an armor on a character I'm going to feed him? Or maybe I know this character is just about to get KO'd, so I put everything I have into this character to try to KO their character. It's entirely possible. It comes down to what you feel they're going to do and then trying to respond to it. If I don't think even after he puts the saber on his character, my character is going to go down, like I said, I played a force field. Okay, let me play a force field, let me play a little more conservative, and then now let me give him this character because I think that I should be okay, I feel I should be okay. And then it goes back to your opponent, they get to do what they get to do, and you guys kind of get to just play that back and forth. What could happen? It's a big thing that goes down in chess, for instance. You always have to think about 2 or 3 turns ahead, 5, 10 turns ahead. I would never go that far with this game, plus chess is very specific with their pieces, so that's a different story. But I always try to plan what my opponent is going to do next. Again, I always play that my opponent has the best card in their hand, and then if they don't, then I usually am smooth sailing. So that's how you kind of play around the fact that you're going to have to naturally KO the Lionizer and then naturally have to deal with the weapon side coming back at you. Now, I said I would talk about a way to kind of respond to Lionizer on defense, and that's with Bolster and Scrapper Gauntlets. Now, Bolster is a secret action, allows you to play in armor when your character defends, and you can either, then play Force Fields, which are really nice to be able to do that on defense. That way, after your opponent does crash in for 1 billion damage, you just take 4, or you get to play Scrapper Gauntlets, which then in response gets rid of Lionizer as a weapon, and then you don't have to worry about the saber on the attack. So that is another way to deal with it. It's a very specific scenario, but if you are into heavy orange, I've been playing the Bolster Force Field combo. I think it's a fantastic little combo. Going into the Scrapper Gauntlets, you're starting to really push the boundaries of what you think you're going to be playing, and if your opponent doesn't have a weapon when they attack into you, it becomes a dead card. So for me, that'd be maybe more of a sideboarded upgrade, just in case I see it, game 1 against my opponent, and then bring it in for game 2 and game 3. Now, I want to talk about how to play against Lionizer before you even really start the game, and that's with choosing whether or not you want to go first. Let's say you look at your opponent's lineup, you see the 3 wide that they are, you see Lionizer, you have to decide if you win the roll. If you don't win the roll, obviously, or however else you guys decide to play, then you leave it up to your opponent. It's their choice. But if you have the choice of going first, you go, okay, my opponent is most likely going to throw Lionizer first. 99% of the time, they throw Lionizer first. They want to get that early damage in with him, and then they want you to have to attack him and possibly KO him, so then they get the weapon side of things. So you know that Lionizer is really that lamb to slaughter. They really are always going to be sending him out there. So if I choose to go first and feed a character specifically to Lionizer, that's a thing. My opponent has to go into him. That does mitigate a little bit of what the Lionizer gets to do because he doesn't have the choice of who to attack. However, you do give them a choice to be able to play a card. Now, they will 99% of the time not be playing Peace Through Tyranny off of turn 1, so I would rarely ever think about Peace Through Tyranny going down on turn 1. But then there's the scenario where they get to play the Grenade Launcher or a Supercharge or an Erratic Lightning or whatever the case is to really buff that Lionizer, and then I need to make sure that my character can survive a Lionizer with an action upgrade or with an upgrade weapon that's going to be able to crash back into me. Can my first character survive? Yes, great, here you go. Or if I just know that my character is just pretty much KO'd no matter what, then I'm myself just giving him someone easy to eat, just feed on, my character's going to get KO'd, I understand that, and then I can kind of move on from there. Now let's say you make your opponent go first. You worry about them playing an action or an upgrade or whatever the case is on their Lionizer. You let them go first, and what if they choose to not use their Lionizer? What if they choose to swing with a different character? What does that mean? Well, my thought process is that it probably means that they're holding a Peace Through Tyranny. Reasoning behind that is because they don't want to throw their Lionizer first and have that Lionizer get one shot. They really want to maximize that Lionizer, and they want 2 turns with the Lionizer, or to be essentially be able to take 2 turns because of Lionizer. They throw their first character, you swing back into their character, and then now they get to play that Peace Through Tyranny. They get essentially an attack with their other character, but then their extra turn is really kind of over. So it depends, are they 4 wide? Are they 3 wide? Are you 2 wide? Are you 3 wide? Most scenarios, most people will not be playing Peace Through Tyranny on their Lionizer unless they get to attack with the last character that gets to turn tap down, gets to refresh, and then gets an additional attack with Lionizer. You usually won't see it at any other point when that is going down, just because if you take an extra turn and you're all tapped down, doesn't really mean anything. You're just really getting rid of your character for the bold 4 for the turn, and then it's a really bad play. The other thing is, they may just want their Lionizer to be able to survive the not get hit the first turn and crash into one of your characters specifically. Maybe let's say their middle character only puts out 5 to 6 damage and that's it, kind of maxing out, but they really want to hit your first character with enough to KO, so they're leaving Lionizer back just to get that extra bolt 4 because they have a grenade launcher and a supercharge or whatever the case is to really maximize that Lionizer hit. And so then again, it comes to you playing around that. Okay, is my opponent going to be Peace Through Tyranny this turn? I'm 3 wide, he's 3 wide. He's not going to be playing it this turn because that's really bad for him. So I'm going to assume he's on the damage output. What character do I give him? Again, do I play a force field? Do I play an armor? How do I play around giving him this character knowing that he's going to be putting so much out and damage into the character? So once you kind of start to evaluate all these things as far as going first, going second, how to attack into it, how to let it attack into you, you start to actually really lower the power level of Lionizer. Now, again, yes, Lionizer can get in for a lot of damage. Yes, he can do a lot of work. but I'm actually not that big of a fan of the character. Like I said, I think he's good, but there's too much hate for the character. There's too much hate for really heavy orange, and especially for Lionizer specifically. One card that just completely ruins Lionizer is Gyro Blaster. He gets to only flip 2 cards, and then he's maybe doing 2 damage. Well, that shuts him down. Dampening Field, they're only allowed to flip 4 cards, so even if they flip a white out of one of their 4, now they're maybe getting it for 3 damage. And then if you're trying to get around cards such as Peace Through Tyranny, you run Infiltrates. Now, I'm going to get into these kind of things here in just a second, talking about sideboard, because that's really, really the way to fight Lionizer and Peace Through Tyranny is via a sideboard. But I will tell you guys, during Gen Con, I didn't have any problems with Lionizer. There was one match specifically when my opponent got really lucky and flipped a crazy amount of damage, and I didn't have a way to respond to it, but he actually ended up flipping a blue at the end of it, and my character survived with 1, which is why I always say when you're coming, when you're playing characters like RC and Lionizer, blue pips can be very dangerous, so it didn't really work out for him in that scenario, but Lionizer can be answered relatively easy with very specific cards. Like I said, in my General Prime Flame War Wheeljack deck, I was mainboarding 2 Gyro Blasters because I was anticipating so much aggression going into Gen Con that they really paid off for me. There were multiple times that I just completely shut my opponent down with having a Gyro Blaster in the main board, and Lionizer did absolutely nothing to me. Even after Lionizer becomes a weapon and goes into your opponent, onto one of your opponent's characters, and they get to attack, they're still only flipping 2 cards. The bold 4 from him becomes completely irrelevant. They get to plan one, sure, they get to put a double orange on top, so maybe they're getting it for 7 or 8 damage versus 16, 17 damage. So again, that's an easy card to just completely shut down Lionizer in general, and that's 1 card. Again, I talked about the sideboard, being able to run Dampening Fields, being able to run even Gyro Blasters in your sideboard. I would say that Gyro Blasters in your main board are very specific. It was something that I was very much anticipating, so I ran them in my main board. And then obviously running Infiltrate in your sideboard, being able to bring that in. Now, Infiltrates are a little more specific because you have to really plan on when to play the card and really avoid your opponent's, Peace or Tyranny, Reckless Charge, Supercharge, all these things. Even if you play it on the turn that you're worried about something going down and your opponent plays into it, it's going to work out for you. Either the card goes away at end of turn or you happen to hit one of their great cards. I infiltrated, I think, 6 Peace Through Tyrannies throughout Gen Con's event, and I'll tell you, man, nothing is a greater feeling than to watch your opponent go to play Peace Through Tyranny. You just infiltrate it, and then they pretty much lose on the following turn because they needed that extra turn and they needed that weapon to possibly pull out the game, and you playing 1 card won you the game. They didn't get in for the extra damage, they didn't get in for the extra turn, and you just take it. It's a really, really powerful card. The other thing that you can do to really help yourself against Peace Through Tyranny is things such as Disruptive Entrance. It is a blue action card, allows you to look into your opponent's hand and scrap an action from them. Now, if you don't want to play blue, you're more on the aggressive side of things, or whatever the case may be, you already, got enough blues in your deck. Espionage. Espionage is a white and a green battle icon card, so you get to be able to fish it, and then you can name a color, and you get to remove a card from your opponent's hand that has the chosen color. I main decked 2 Espionages during Gen Con specifically to fight a few different cards, but one of them was Peace Through Tyranny. The other one was like Grenade Launcher, or being able to hit some of these other really powerful, like Enigmas, really powerful cards that you can't really respond to in your opponent's hand. A lot of times when I'm building a deck, I sit there and I look at, okay, this is what I'm going to be able to fight on board. These are the cards I'm going to be able to use to help win battles on board. But how do I win battles when it comes to my opponent's hand? If my opponent has a Grenade Launcher in hand, they just play it next turn and I lose, that sucks. What could I have done better? Nothing. They had a Grenade Launcher in hand, I can't respond to it. An Espionage allows me to pull that out of their hand. It allows me to hit those Peace Through Tyrannies on my opponent's hand so they don't get to be able to double attack on the wheel and stuff like that. So, like I said, I built very specific Like, I'm going to be doing the separate video that I talked about where I go way more in depth as to why I built that list, but those are just 2 cards that I put in my main for those specific reasons. So I want a lot of people just to understand that when it comes to playing against Lionizer, Peace, or Tyranny, which seem to be a very, very hot topic right now, it doesn't come down to the game. It comes down to how you built your deck. And if you do not build in preparation for Lionizer or Peace or Tyranny or a couple of other things, you're probably going to lose to them. And that doesn't come down to anything other than your deck building. You need to make sure that when you build your deck, you evaluate what your deck is bad against, and you either main board stuff to fight that, or you sideboard better to fight that. So if I'm running, let's say, a heavy blue deck, and I go against heavy blues, I win 80% of my matches, but against heavy orange, I lose 60% of my matches. What can I main board that doesn't hurt me against blue, but drastically helps me against orange? And one of those things could just be a gyro blaster. It could be a dampening field, which is a white battle icon, doesn't hurt. I get to play it on my defense, and then it doesn't hurt my defense and my tough, but my opponent can't flip more than 4. Boom, throw that dampening field down there. I have tough. You attacked for 6. I block for 9. Great. That did it. You know what I mean? Even if you're on the orange versus orange, dampening field is still a white card. Allows you to flip 2 more on attack, and then still stops your opponent on defense. So there are lots of ways for you to be able to build against fighting these things. It's just really understanding your meta and what you're going to play against. Now, are you always going to be able to build to fight every deck that you could possibly come across? No. You're going to have to be able to build your deck to be able to face 4 decks, let's say. And then your sideboard's going to be able to help you with those 4 decks a little better. It's really hard to try to build your deck to fight this one off and that one off and that one off and Dinobots and Superion and this, especially with this evolving meta we have, it won't work. So you really need to focus on what decks you know you're going to come across, and then are you good against those decks? Are you bad against those decks? If you're good against them, great, then you can sideboard for the one-offs, and if you're bad against them, main board to be better against them, and then sideboard to be even better against those 4, and just hope that you get to dodge those one-offs, or when you get yourself into those one-off situations, you're a good enough pilot that you can probably try to navigate your way to a win. The other thing I wanted to talk about that a lot of people are talking about when it comes to seeing a lot of the Gen Con results is blue dead? No. By no means is blue out of it. It was a new wave that got dropped for a massive event. People will naturally start to lean a little more into the aggressive side of things. Plus, I would say aggro got a lot of tools from wave 3 to really help them be more aggressive. But you can really build an awesome blue deck to easily play against those orange decks. It's just people weren't on that for Gen Con. People were more into the aggressive side of things, more into the racing. Time was a really big issue at Origin, so people didn't really want to go to time. So people were like, let me just naturally, go a little orange. I went with a very mixed list when I got to top 8, and it was because the deck synergy was absolutely insane. But because I got to put out 8 to 12 damage on offense, and then I got to block 5 to 8 damage on defense, and for me that was enough for me to be comfortable with that, because I knew what was going to be out there essentially as far as the aggression, and go, I know people are going to be swinging for lots of amounts of damage. How do I block it, but then I have to KO them on the attack? And that's kind of how I settled into my list. My top 32 deck is completely different. That one is all about the race. Get in, get in, get in. Like I said, I'll be doing a video on that one later on. But trying to understand what you're playing against and then deck building to face those is where all of it starts. You can build whatever you want to build. You can go into battle with whatever you go into battle with. But if you just built your deck just to do what your deck does and doesn't care about anything else, it may not do well. It may do really good because you just built it with solid fundamentals. But I bet if it has those solid fundamentals, it's built to survive a lot of damage. It's built to deal a lot of damage. It's built to protect yourself while dealing damage. They all have a theme that really get there. So, again, people who are saying blue's gone, blue's dead, blue's out, no, it's not. It's nowhere near out. We saw aerial bots hit top 8. We had 2 aerial bots in top 32 that unfortunately got paired against each other. So obviously that drastically brought down that. There just wasn't a lot of blue in top 32 because a lot of people didn't want to play blue in top 32. I probably should have stuck to my prime list and brought that. There were multiple mixed lists that were in the top 32 that specifically were running blue cards, which did really well. I piloted aerial bots in one of the prelims that did really well, just barely missed the cut for top 8. I saw lots of blue decks that were there. They just didn't get built correctly or had really bad matchups. Again, it's just the way things worked out. I'll obviously get into way more of this stuff with the Gen Con breakdown. We'll talk about all the different matchups, what we saw, all that good jazz. But I really wanted to address today this Lionizer, Peace, or Tyranny conversation that's going on, and just really, like I said, just bring people, I don't want to say back to reality with it, but just because it had a really good showing at Gen Con doesn't mean it's just the best. You know, we saw 3-wide primes do extremely well at Origins, and it just crushed because there were so many of them there. But did you see any in the top 32? I think there was maybe 1, 2, if that, but none of them made it very far. I know multiple times in my prelims, I knocked out 3-wide multiple times. So just because it's very present at one point doesn't mean that it is king, it is the best. It just means that it had more of a showing and it performed very well, or it had great matchups. So, like I said, just wanted to address it, really calm people down from it. They are very powerful cards. There are so many powerful cards in this game in general. It's all about how you build your deck and how your matchups go, and if you built them, piloted them correctly, and all of that good jazz. Now, I'm going to be doing something new soon. Lots of people have been asking me about a deck doctor series, essentially, where I get to help people build their decks, mess around with them and all that kind of stuff. I've got, I don't know, probably 16 different lists and character cards that I've been emailed that I will be messing around with, or I'll be able to help people when it comes to being able to build these things. And like I said, I'm going to be doing a lot more stuff on the website with that, specifically going into a little more of a competitive side of things because you guys really want to see it. So I'm going to be doing all of that. I really hope that this did help you guys. If you are on the other side of the fence when it does come to the Lionizer stuff, I really hope that you guys did get to learn a little bit from kind of understanding board states and how to play around certain things. If you guys did, obviously a like would be greatly appreciated. Make sure you guys subscribe so you guys can get access to all of our videos as soon as they become available, especially all that stuff I told you was on the way. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.